Hi, I'm Bob Menard. I own the Ball and Chain Forge, a custom blacksmith shop in Portland, Maine. Today we're going to make a lucky dragon's foot, although it hasn't really been very lucky for the dragon so far. The material that we're going to use is flat bar, and it wants to have a 2-to-1 ratio. Specifically today we're going to be using 3/4 by 3/8, but any other bar that fits that dimension would work. Anything from 1 inch by 2 inch to 1 inch by 1/2 inch to 1/2 inch by 1/4 inch, anything that displays that 2-to-1 property of measurement. So let's get started. This is the small collection of tools that was used in making the dragon's foot. Please note the very thin hot set, also the 1/2 round punch and the chasing tool. I start out with a blunt steep taper. The blunt taper formed on the end makes it easier to form the claws and to create the correct shape. Don't over-forge the very tip of it. With the cutting plate and a sharp hot cut chisel, I start to form the claws. And these are cut into just the taper. Try to break it into thirds. It's very easy to get the center claw too narrow, so you want to leave that wider than you imagine you would have to. A little precision here. Now I take a pair of pliers and just break out the little nubbins that are left. At this point, there's a rag that is formed at the very bottom of each claw. And now what I'll do is heat it up and we'll go to the vise and clean it up. Using the hot cut, you come right down between the claws. And drive the cut right to the bottom. Again, don't overforge this. Now we have the body of the claws formed. I haven't trimmed the outside edges of the claws. I prefer to do that with the file because you get a better outcome than trying to cut it off with the chisel. Using a small 1/2 round chisel that I've made, I define the edges of the claws. Just a couple of blows is sufficient. Now, I create an outline of the toes, starting right between the claws and just tapering in slightly. And I use a very heavy, blunt cold chisel. I then use a chasing tool that I've created, and I chase back the edges, which helps define the toes a little bit more. Now I have the toes kind of chased in. This is a good place to put in a few wrinkles halfway up. Now I've extended the toes about 3/4 of an inch. Halfway up, I put in 2 marks. And these are wrinkles for the knuckle. They don't have to be even, encouraged for them not to be. I just want to break the outside edges of the toes a little bit so that it helps to dovetail them in with the chasing work that I did on the inside of the toes. Just taking the edge off. Gives it a more natural look. That's it, as far as I go. Behind the marks that I've made that help define the toes, I put in a half round. I do not come down directly on my marks. This is 3/8 diameter. This helps define the back of the foot. I go down approximately halfway into the parent material. Then I extend my lines back into it. It's better to extend your lines into it than to crush the lines that you've already made. Just a little chasing. Now I'm going to taper the material back behind the mark that I've made, and that helps to define the heel. If you've changed the half round depression, now is as good a time as any to go in and just clean it up. You can see I've considerably thickened the cross section through there, but then we're going to go through a process where we thin it once again over a half rounded section of the anvil, and that defines the heel. With the detail facing down, I come to a rounded portion of the edge of the anvil, approximately 1/2 of an inch away from the rounded depression. I turn it over, pick my hand up, and drive a half-face blow into the material. Pull in snug. You drive about 2/3 of the way through the parent stock. It does create this bump here, which is fine. It widens slightly in this area, which again is fine because it helps to define the heel a little bit better. That can be trimmed just slightly. Now we hot file the claws. Begin the hot filing by shaping the outside of the two outer claws. You can see all the shaping with the claws was down. All I do on the bottom is just clean the burr off. A slight burr will form. I'll take that off and I'll take off any sharp edges. Now, if there's any final tapering that needs to be done or forming of the calf, this is the time. The caution here is be careful about not hitting the pretty. Everything that you put all this time and effort into to create detail, now would be a bad time to strike it. Prior to this last bit of forming, you're going to want to quench the important parts, the detail that you forged in, so that if you strike it with a hammer, it doesn't do unnecessary damage. I don't go past the heel point. That's one of the places where I am going to be bending. This area is best described as the calf area and is behind the heel. And what you want to do is, with the detail facing up, you want to bend it around. See why I quenched the detail? Into a 90 or slightly greater than 90-degree bend. A little twist here. We put this back bend in so that when we form the heel, that's already in place. By quenching nearly everything except for the heel, I've isolated that heat. A slight adjustment on the anvil. Just closing it up tighter. Now I do a little final shaping. dragon's foot is now ready to be incorporated into whatever project you choose to use it for. I have thought about using it as a table leg. Depending on the size of the material, it can be used as a key fob, a paperweight, a general knick-knack. What I'll do now is clean it up with a wire brush. Then I heat the toes till they're red hot, and I use a brass brush to color them. And then the entire thing is coated with a wax finish. I heat the toes until they're just a dull cherry. The rest of the heat travels through the piece and gives it nice heat coloration. I use a good clean fire. If there's a little bit of soot, then I'll clean that off right now. This is a soft brass brush, and I'm just brushing the claws, and it is depositing a thin layer of brass on the claws. Now we have a thin layer of brass brushed onto the claws. This is floor wax. And I just melt this in. One of the things I like about this is it also burns slightly, which darkens the color. It's smoking pretty good, which means this is just slightly warm for this. It wants to look wet, but you don't want to have too much wax on it. Sometimes you have to let the piece cool a little bit so that the wax will build appropriately and not smoke off and burn off almost immediately. It's a very delicate balance because I'm searching for a high enough heat to burn the wax so it helps to darken, but not so hot that it evaporates the wax off. Make sure you get all the nooks and crannies. These are a couple of different styles that have been created using the same basic techniques. Some are as small as a key fob, some are as large as a table leg.